It's time for our class to begin. If you have your lesson number two, lesson 2, we're looking at the 5th to the 10th chapters in this lesson of looking at the instruction. There's been the numbering that we talked about last time. Now, with this generation, you're dealing with the instruction that's given to them in context of their departing, which would be very soon. So our first question, I think, would help us understand why he starts with this. What was the twofold purpose for the quarantines in the camp of the Israelites, instead of of the Israelites? Notice he says if they have leprosy or they have the issue of the skin, there's an infection and so forth, and it can be that they're supposed to be unclean, and therefore they were to put that person outside the camp so it wouldn't affect other people. So there's one sense of it, to keep the camp clean. And that would also do is ceremonial cleanliness if you touched a dead body that he mentions here in verse 2. Is unclean by the dead, both male and female shall he be put out, regardless of the sexes. And what would be the second reason? Keep the camp clean, but there's also a relationship with God, isn't it, David? It's the holiness of God, because look what he says, that this is where I dwell, in the midst where I dwell, verse 3. So there's a sense of recognizing God's holiness, separation from sin, which these issues from the body and the leprosy and so forth, touching a dead body, that might keep the camp clean as far as getting sick from one another, but it's also keeping it clean, recognizing the holiness of God. That becomes very, very important. He then speaks about the instruction when you sin. It's a sin against Jehovah, but it looks like it's in a context when we are sinning against somebody else, to the point that we ask this question: should one make restitution for what he or she has wrongfully taken from another? We just open this up. It says, he that sinned and commit this sin as a trespass against Jehovah, and they're guilty. They're supposed to be confessing their guilt. They'll be offering a sacrifice, but were they to offer a restitution? What's that? Plus 20%. Yeah, 1/5. That's right. But wonder if you can't find that person. You don't have to give the 20%. You have to give it to the priest. Restitution all the time. Well, there's nobody to give it to. Well, in this case, you're going to give it to somebody, because the principle of restitution, restoring one. So when somebody spends $1 trillion, and sometimes and they have to, they get caught at that, shouldn't they have to pay it back? I think so. It may take them a while. Feel sorry for their lineage after them, but that's a principle that we have. And some people say, well, I've sinned, I've stolen $10,000, I praise God, I've been forgiven, and we just move on without even thinking about to restore that. Some people, and this is another area, but it's something worthy to think. I've had people in this area where they've gone bankrupt, and they don't even try to pay back their debt. That's not even thought of, because they got out of it. And that's the Christians. And they think, well, that's just the way of doing business, and this particular person has been bankrupt twice. And they have no sense, there's never any thought about trying to have a payback plan of what I've wronged people over, and I haven't paid my debts. So this is the principle I think should be in our minds, that we're under the old law. But there was a sense of restoring, adding more. I hurt you, I'm adding 1/5, 20% more than that was. And then to show that restitution was important, if you didn't have anybody there, who I'm going to give it to, you would give it to the priest. Question number 3, the purpose for the water of bitterness. What was that? A woman would have to drink this water. And we're asking the question, was it to expose the wife guilty of a secret adulterous affair? Was it to embarrass an innocent woman? Just like God. He'd just make you do this, but wonder if you're innocent. Was it just to embarrass her? Or was it allowing one to escape the death penalty under the law of Moses? And those are things you can think about and all that, but here's one of those examples where we observe that there is a particular case dealing with. I don't know all the ramifications, what happens next. But this is dealing with one particular problem. And that is a man thinks that his wife has been unfaithful to him, has had an affair, and no one saw it. But he has a spirit of jealousy. And the provisions that God has set forth, especially as they're journeying in their camps, and they're going to be intermingled with one another and so forth, this event may come up. So here's a woman married to a man, and he thinks something has happened. He's to take her to the priest. She's to bring a meal offering. And there would be the idea of the accusation. They would write down the curse because of the sin of a curse. They were to scrape it off into the water that has had the dust of the tabernacle floor placed up in it. And that becomes the water of bitterness. Because as she gives the meal offering, he sprinkles out upon the altar. She then is to let her hair down and let her drink. First of all, she makes an oath. I have not been unfaithful to him. And then she drinks it. What happens if she's guilty? Her body swells, her thigh falls away. An expression that and inside her inner being swells. I think that's death. She's not going to live when that happens. What was the sin? What was the punishment of the sin of adultery in the old law? Yeah, you didn't put them away. You put them to death. And so here, I think, was exposing that guilty one who had no two witnesses out here, but just the jealous spirit of a husband. Wonder if he's just kind of jealous all the time. And I wonder if she drinks it and she does not swell up. What does that mean? She's innocent and she will have children, the text says. So those are those verses we're seeing here of taking place. And I can think about it, well, what are they going to do with the man? Let's talk about the man. What if I'm jealous? I think he's had an affair. Let him, have a T-bone steak and see if his body swells up. What are we going to do about that? It's not what happens. I wonder if we're not told what happens next. I would think maybe what happens next, they found out who the guy was. And they'd stone him to death. It's contingency law. We're just talking about one contingency that's there, and that's on this side of that. And God made provisions. And he's the one that determines, because he sees all. You were not escaping the penalty of death. We're not trying to embarrass a woman. That's just like men to do that, to have a law like that. And it was exposing the wife who is guilty of a secret adulterous affair. And it's just an interesting point that is set forth there. Doesn't mean the guilty man's not going to have part of that. And if I were a woman, I'd be very thankful that I'm standing before God and let everybody know that I am innocent. And I don't think that should be an embarrassment. But because it's so one-sided, many women today are setting forth that that's just another thing that makes this thing written by men and not by God. But God gives that teaching. And it's for dealing with contingencies that he's dealing with as they're getting ready to make their move. All right, question number 4. The Nazirite vow was an oath taken for a definite time period where a man or a woman was separated and consecrated totally unto God in a special way. Is that true as we come into chapter 6, or is that false? First of all, was it to take an oath for just a limited period of time? Yes. Only men made the Nazirite vow, like maybe John the Baptist? No, women, men or women were to make that, if they did that, saying to them, whether man or woman shall make a special vow. It was a special vow of dedication to God in a special way. There's a vow dealing with some reason that they're making a special vow. And it was separated unto God to the point that during that time where they're separated unto God, they were not to touch any dead body, even among their family members. They were not to drink wine or the fruit of the grape, like grape juice. They're not to drink wine, even if intoxicated wine. All wine can become intoxicated, but that's the point, is that they were not to have anything that comes from the grape. Those are the laws that God has set forth. And they, for that period of time, and then when that period of time is over, they were then to bring sacrifices. They were to cut their hair, and they ended the vow. In fact, in verse 20, the Nazirite may drink wine. It's not saying I can drink alcoholic beverages now. Wine, juice of the grape is involved in there. It could become fermented in the Old Testament, and in the New Testament they could do that. But it's a sense of the produce from the grape, the vinegar of wine or vinegar of strong drink. Neither shall you drink any juice of grapes, nor eat fresh grapes or dried. See, not anything connected with the grape. And it had that definite period of time. Now here's what is it kind of interesting to me. Wonder if all of a sudden you're out and you touch a dead body. You didn't necessarily mean to, but it was something that could not be avoided. Then you've sinned. You have a trespass offering. You have a burnt offering that's going to be offered, a sin offering, 2 turtle doves, verse 10, and then your time starts all over again. You ended that one, and you weren't consecrated unto God in that holy manner, in that special way, for that special oath that you make. And you have to start over again. He says, and verse 12, and he shall separate unto Jehovah the days of his separation, and it shall bring a he lamb for a year old for a trespass offering, but the former days shall be void, because his separation was defiled. That is indeed the emphasis that we're speaking about, that separation unto God. So there's a special vow that one made, taking an oath, and it comes and all the dealings with that. So here's our next question, number 5. Why do you think the priestly benediction now is revealed following the law of the Nazirite? Because all of a sudden he places this something that's just out of kilter with us. Well, what did I have to follow? And all of a sudden, this is the law of the Nazirite who voweth, verse 21. And then in verse 22, Jehovah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and his sons, saying on this wise, You shall bless the children of Israel. You shall say to them, The Lord bless thee and keep thee. Jehovah is the word there, but it's translated Lord, or a lot of our translations. Jehovah make his face to shine upon thee, and be gracious unto thee. Jehovah lift up his countenance upon thee, and give thee peace. So shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Why do you think that's inserted here? Because that's the priestly benediction. That's what the preacher says in denominational realms, to bless the audience. And that's one that we see sometimes written and to try to give us encouragement of God's blessing upon the people. Aaron was to do that. And so why would that fit here? I think there's reasons why things are put together in the text. Notice he says, I will put my name upon the children of Israel. Who has just made a special vow that God sanctified is upon his head? Notice in verse 7, because his separation to God is upon his head. The separation of God is upon his head, the Nazirite vow. And the idea of blessing people in that particular context, the Nazirite vow, but would also extend to the people in general. And the fact that God has blessed you, and he will bless them, and they that put my name upon the children of Israel. So shall they put my name on the children of Israel when God's countenance upon them. You separated unto God, and now his blessings come upon you because you're separated unto God. I think that is just a general now coming, but a special reason that was needed when people were making their vows, and that especially that Nazirite vow would be there. I think that's why it's connected together. What do you think? All right, question number 6. In the dedication of the tabernacle, after being anointed, this tabernacle has been purified and cleansed, anointed, sacrifices. Why was the distribution of the 6 wagons and 12 oxen among the Levites, Gershon, Merari, and Kohath? Why were they different to these Levites? Say that? Why does one need 6 and one needs 2? Yeah, I think so. You had the people of the Gershon, Merari. You had those taking the boards, like Merari taking the heavy stuff. That would be boards. They would need have more to carry, and need more oxen to carry the heavier wagons, and they were divided. There were 6 of those wagons that went just to 3 families, because they were involved in carrying the load of the curtains, and Gershon them of the curtains, but the boards, and Kohath nothing. They don't get any wagon. Why? Because they're bearing the furniture. And we've been observing how that was set up, and now there's the teaching regarding that, and the idea of there will be 12 wagons, 6 of them, indeed 1 wagon for 2 tribes. But when you got to the Levites, there was a division of that thing 2 and 4. And the 4th one goes to the people carrying the heavier load, have the big, longer boards. That would all make sense. And indeed, there's a reason for that, but they divided 6 and 6, and then the oxen was divided among them. But we've already seen in these first 4 chapters, hopefully pick up on that, where you had those bigger elements, the boards and the heavier stuff would demand more wagons, and that was going to pull them. Any questions or comments about that? But you hadn't thought about that, had you? But they're divided up. There's a purpose for that. In the dedication of the altar, what was included in, my eye's not going real good on that board, called a computer. In the gifts offered. What was included in the gifts offered? Because what we began to see is that here's the oblations by the princes. You got 12 days because you got 12 princes. 12 that are heading the tribes of Israel. And you can read all of this section, and when you get through reading that, just go test yourself. It says so many shekels for the platter, so many shekels for this, so many shekels for the incense. Were they all the same? Was everything that every tribe were to offer, bring their oblations, was indeed everyone had to give equally? Did you pick that up? Unless I missed something, everything's equal. And so you begin to realize what was being set forth here, what was included in the gifts offered. It was the various gifts that the priest would use, like a spoon, 12 spoons, that the priest would use and offering the sacrifices. They are providing that and bringing it unto God, and be divided up among the priest, especially with the silver spoons. All those things would be set forth together. And I'll just, as we go into chapter 7, I'll just read the one on the day that Moses made an end of setting up the tabernacle. He anointed it and sanctified it, and the furniture thereof, and the altar, and all the vessels thereof, in order to sanctify them. The princes of Israel, the heads of their fathers' houses, offered, they were offered them, numbered, and they brought their oblations before Jehovah. That's six wagons and so forth. But he was to bring those things. That was divided up. And now we see on the first day, verse 12, he said, and they offered his oblation the first day was Nashon, the son of Benadad, the tribe of Judah. So you got tribe of Judah. It was indeed one silver platter. The weight thereof was 130 shekels. One silver bowl, a weight of 70 shekels. Out of the shekel of the sanctuary. Both of them full of flour mingled with oil for a meal offering. Golden spoon of 10 shekels, full of incense. Offering up incense on the altar. Offering their meal offerings. Everyone is making the provisions so that the temple service could be done. It didn't just come out from nowhere. It wasn't shipped from India. It was coming in. These would provide that in every tribe. 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 he-lambs a year old. This was the oblation of Nashon, the son of Amminadab. The second day, Nathaniel. So you had 12 days, not 12 days of Christmas. You got 12 days, the tribes, and everyone was to bring their part into this sacrifice for all the offerings that are going to be set forth in dedication of the temple on the altar. And therefore it was accomplished. So those are the items that would be used in offering the sacrifices. That was provided for them. And so that's what we have all these chapters there and we talk about. Now, here is the instruction being given. So here's an issue that might come up. In line of chapter in Exodus 40 and 35, did anybody read that chapter? Read that verse in Exodus? If you did, what do we know when they set up the tabernacle? What caused something to happen? That Moses would not be in there? The cloud, full of God's glory, inhabited the inside of the temple, the tabernacle. Nobody could go in there. And yet, verse 89, when Moses went into the tent of meeting to speak with him, he heard a voice speaking unto him from above the mercy seat that was upon the ark, and the testimony from between the 2 cherubim, and he spake unto him. Why is that inserted? After all these days of showing things connected with the altar. Why does he put that there? Because when they set up the temple, nobody was there. So what does this mean? If Moses speaks to them, he must have given this law before the temple was set up. And it's inserted here because now after that, or it happened after that the temple was set up and God's glory left that for Moses to enter in and receive this instruction. It was connected with service in the altar, but it was there put here because this, when it was first, we have to understand at the end, when that temple was first set up, that indeed there was nobody entering in, Exodus 40:35. But as Moses' face would get, being the glory of God, it would ease off. We find that God's glory there is wonderful and established. I'm here. Now here is how the sacrifices and the altar, this is how it's going to be provided. And God got that when Moses got that when God spoke to him. And he was inside. And he was a mercy seat that was upon the ark of the testimony. God spoke with him face to face, verbally. And there's the point that we see in God dealing with Moses and his glory filling the temple. And I think this is the point that he's making here. This would be something that they offered after. It makes sense to be after they had set up the temple and that initial glory of God's there. Now, God speaks to Moses, and I think this is what he told him to do. That's why we have it at that point. Why was the candlestick to be lit? And who was to light it? In chapter 8. Why do you light a lantern? And you get the nuance of the language that's setting forth here. It gives light in front of the candlestick in verse 2. It gives light in front of the candlestick. When thou lightest the lamps, the 7 lamps, it gives light in the front of the candlestick, and who lit it? Aaron, didn't he? He's the one that lit it. He did so. And lighted the lamps thereof, so as to give light in front of the candlestick, just to emphasize that. It lights the room inside and before that. And it gives light in the inner sanctuary. The sanctuary, and then divides the curtain into the most holy place. And he just says they were, the flowers thereof is a beaten work according to the pattern which Jehovah showed Moses. So he made the candlestick. As things are now, tabernacle being set up, and now he's referring back to the various maps of the furniture. Altars being prepared for, here's the candlestick being offered. And that becomes important. Now we're going to dedicate the Levites. They're going to be in service. So instruction comes to them. And question number 10, what took place before the Levites served? They had to be purified. Verse 5 of chapter 8, and Jehovah spake unto Moses, saying, take the Levites from among the children of Israel, and cleanse them. And thus shalt thou do unto them, to cleanse them, sprinkle the water of expiation, the American Standard says, but purification unto them, and then let them cause a razor to pass over all their flesh, and let them wash their clothes and cleanse themselves. Then let them take a young bullock and its meal offering, fine flour, mingling, oil, and so forth. Verse 9, thou shalt present the Levites before the tent of meeting. Thou shalt assemble the whole congregation of the children of Israel. Thou shalt present the Levites before Jehovah. They need to be clean. I'm in the midst of you, you keep the camp clean. I'm holy. Yes, it's going to benefit you. You're not going to get leprosy by being contaminated by the others. And the Levites had to be ceremoniously cleansed in order for them to start serving. And that's exactly what they were going to be doing. And we asked number 11, the Levites were wholly given unto God for what purpose? Why were they given unto God? And he's come back to this again. We've seen the difference. Why were the Levites not counted when the men of war is taking place? We talked about that. He's going to hit this again in verse 16. For they are wholly given unto me from among the children of Israel, instead of all that openeth the womb, even the firstborn of all the children of Israel, have I taken them unto me. They belong to me. Otherwise, I would get the firstborn. When did he kind of make that one he hallowed? We talked about that. He hallowed that day when he took the firstborn of the people of Egypt, and also the firstborn of all of their animals. That's when he hallowed that day, and therefore he has the firstborn. Who takes their place? The Levites. They wholly belong unto me. They're not numbered among the warriors. They're going to go fight, 20 years old and upward. And they'll be aged 30 to 50. And 25 to 50s. And so you begin to realize that here's the trade-off. And then if you had, as we saw last week, if you had more that needs to be set forth before God, more than the Levites had, you'd pay the half shekel of the sanctuary for the firstborn. And that's the male would have to offer that. So that's why he says that dedicated unto him in that way. What is the charge given to the Levites beginning at age 50 that was different from the service they had been doing since they were age 25? And how they could assist the other? Well, So tell me, there's a charge given to them, but not a service demanded of them. There's a charge. They have to do something. There's a charge given to them, but it was different from the service that they've been offering since they were 25 years of age. What do you think that might be the difference between those two? Flip that ox over here and put it on the altar, please. We're going to sever it. Maybe you could do that. I'm 50. I don't have to. You younger guys take care of that big ox. Take care of that service that indeed they were having to do. They could then meet the charge of helping and assisting others that would be less rigorous work to have to be done. But he said there's a difference between, and they were not to do the idea of the service, but they gave them a charge, but don't do the service. So I'm trying to think, what would that be? And to me, the age point that we're looking at would be, that would change that where they could serve, but maybe in another way that they weren't having to do with the physical aspect of the sacrifices. Yeah. Yep. That's right. Yep. That's a good point. Question number 13. For what purpose is placing the even what is the place for the event? Not the placing the event surrounding the Passover in chapter 9 and verse 1, which is dated before Numbers 1 and verse 1. So let's see the time frame. All of a sudden he gives us a date, and he places it here in this section of the Passover. Jehovah spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai the first month of the second year. Numbers 1 and 1 begins with the second month of that second year. This is the first month in the second year that he speaks to them about the Passover. Why put it here when it's already the second month? Why do we have it here? What do you think?
Going back, reminding them what happened at that point to go into more detail on that?
Well, or what happened when the Passover was told that they needed to do during that first month. They were going to take the Passover, and he noticed in the first part it's going to be on the 14th day. It's going to have to be then, and you're going to have to be make yourself holy. So we will look at those first few verses up to verse 4. Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover. So they did that in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, which I think is that first year when they left Egypt. They remember that. But all of a sudden, and this is the point you get to now, it's not to reinforce what has happened. We've got a new problem. And it's going to be involved, it's already be involved in the idea of we're going to be making a move, we're going to make it a journey. And there may be someone that touches a dead body and be unclean. So he brings out something that will be part of their trip, and he now deals with what this might mean, especially already among them. So there were certain men who were unclean by reason of the dead body of a man. We're in the second year now. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, we are unclean by reason of the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer the oblation of Jehovah in its appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto him, stay ye, that I may hear what Jehovah will command concerning you. Got a new event came up, now they're current. He just throws in here where the law was, and they did on their journey. I'm recording Moses recording them. They did that just exactly what they're supposed to in that first year. Come to the second year, and now we've got an issue. And what does Moses do? I think we'll do this. What did he first do? I think he'll go talk to Jehovah about it. Was that smart? I hope we would always go to the scriptures first. What are we going to do about that? I'll just let it go. Let them partake of it and unclean. We know they're good people. whatever. So he said, they shall be unclean by reason of a dead body. And it says, or be on a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Jehovah. How are you going to do that? In the 2nd month, on the 14th day at even, ye shall keep it, and shall eat it with unleavened bread and herbs. And they shall leave none of it unto the morning, just as they do the regular Passover. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, he didn't show up to take it, that soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he offered not the oblation of Jehovah in its anointed season, and man shall bear his sin. When he could have been there and he's not there, he didn't get the opportunity. Well, we'll just take it next time. If a stranger shall sojourn among you, you'll keep the Passover to Jehovah, according to the ordinance and so forth. And so, beginning with verse 15, we find the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle. That goes back to its beginning in Exodus. It was covered, even the tent of the testimony, and even it was upon the tabernacle as it were appeared as fire in morning. So it was always, the cloud covered it, and the appearance of fire by night. And whenever the cloud was taken up over the tent, then after the children of Israel journeyed, in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel encamped. So I'm asking in this particular question, what appearance of the cloud, what does the appearance of the cloud over the tabernacle teach us regarding having authority for what we do as Christians? I have to make that correction in our copy. You wouldn't know what, I didn't put authority there. How's that reflect authority? Yes, sir.
They waited until the cloud moved before they moved the tabernacle.
Yeah.
So they didn't just do like some people that about their present day, like King Saul, that did whatever he wanted to do.
That's right.
They waited until God gave them the sign right after that.
That's right. And when the cloud moved, they moved, and when it set, they said, we don't go beyond what is written. We speak where God speaks, and we're silent where God's silent. You know, those are principles of how we establish authority from God, and they did that here. And that cloud would rise up. And if they're going by night, it'd be like fire. But where it stay, it would rest upon the tabernacle, and they were not to be moving then, and that's what would happen. All right. Anything you want to add about authority?
I was just going to say, people try to reason, take what's there in the scriptures, then reason beyond it. Oh, well, we could do this too, because it's in the same vein, it's in the same vein, it's in the same line, whatever. They knew the direction they were traveling.
Yep.
They knew which way they were going to go in the morning, or a general idea of what direction they were going to go. But they waited for the cloud.
Yes.
They take it upon themselves to say, well, we know where we're going, so we know we can just go ahead and go.
Yeah. I'm glad we don't have a cloud to get to services at 9 o'clock Sunday morning. I don't think we're waiting and ready to dead, and God wants to go a different time. You know, but that was showing we're not going to make a move unless God directs us, and it's true. That's important. David? Yeah. I think so. All right, let's look at question. Oh, excuse me. I didn't mean to do that. Well, I didn't put all the rest of them here. Question number 15 is, the 2 silver trumpets were to be blown by whom? We go into chapter 10. Yeah, verse 8. They would be blowing that. And then question number 16, the silver trumpets were to be sounded for what purpose other than for alarm? So what was the purpose for blowing the trumpets if it wasn't for alarm? They had a different sound for alarm, and they had 2 trumpets that they blow one time. It meant something to certain people. So we're trying to figure out what that is. So when you talk about alarm, what do you see in verse 7? But when the assembly is to be gathered together, ye shall blow, but ye shall not sound an alarm. So I want to know, when do you sound the alarm? What is that purpose for? Yeah, well, it's a time for war. That's the second reason. And while we're talking about time for war, God will remember you. It's a memorial. I'm with this people right here. And indeed, there's that trumpet, and God is being in their presence, and he's going to be the one that it's a memorial to him. It wakes him up if he needed to be wakened and to sound the alarm. And what's the other reason? He said, when you blow but one, verse 4, then the princes and the heads of the thousands of Israel shall gather themselves unto thee. But when you blow an alarm, it's for the time to move, and it's a time for war. It's a time to move first. I'm moving, but then the other alarm is that it's time you're in the presence of your enemies, and God needs to come together. And so you have also the idea of gatherings, and then you have the idea of what happens when you blow the trumpets also for the day of your gladness in verse 10, your set feast, the beginnings of your months. You shall blow the trumpets, offer your burnt offerings and sacrifice your peace offers, and they shall be to you for a memorial before your God. I am Jehovah your God. So meanings connected with the blowing the trumpet. Paul will argue, how do you, if you don't know the meaning of an instrument, how can you realize it's an alarm? It's a time to go. There had to be meaning behind things that we communicate with one another. So those are the two purposes that are sounded as an alarm: the gatherings and against the enemy. And you sometimes think, well, gathering, why would that be an alarm? It is. It's time. It's God's alarm. The alarm clock's off. Let's move. So it's not the idea that it's just for war, but it was also that. Any thoughts you want to add to that? All right, we covered 10 chapters, first 10, and you got lesson 3 out here in the foyer, where we're going to be looking at the journey begins and what is going to happen on this journey. We'll talk about that next time. Thank you.